I love battle cries. I think they're pretty awesome. Oh, by the way, subscribe if you know if you enjoy anything that I do. If you've seen a couple of things or whatever. Anyway, subscribe if you want or not. Either way, just figure I should say that. I love battle cries in movies and TV. Like I love those moments in like a battle scene where a character will let out this just guttural roar that will like shake the whole direction of the battle, or maybe it'll send fear into certain portion of the other armies, or maybe it just sounds cool, right? And there's a lot of different ways that a battle cry can be done in a movie or a TV show, and usually that's not a point that has a lot of emphasis put on it, right? Like there are movies like Logan, right? Like one of the things that I don't love about the Fox Wolverine, even though Hugh Jackman's fantastic in the way he portrays it, one of the things I don't love about that is they don't embrace the animalistic side of Wolverine enough, or they don't go as deep into it as they could have, where he has this ability of super senses, right? Beforehand, of like super smell, and he has that in one of his prequels, and then they just forget about it and they never address it again. But anyway, he has a battle cry scene towards the end of Logan. He's running through the forest and he's going ah, and he's like stabbing all these people after he pumped his neck with whatever the chemical was. I don't remember what it was, but that's kind of low on my list of battle cries because it's not like super felt. And then you have battle cries like Braveheart, when after they have that fight on the open field that was based on a real fight that in real life was actually on a bridge. It was like the Battle of Stirling Bridge, something bridge. I don't remember. Anyway, after the fight, after they win that battle, Mel Gibson just takes his sword and he goes, raises it up. I really love that scene, too. He's got like the blood all over him and his whole army's cheering with him and stuff. But again, there's not like a whole lot of emphasis. Like that's not the moment people remember. They remember his speech. They remember the way he died. They remember what his last words were in the movie. They remember things like that. They don't remember that moment. I've already talked about Kick-Ass, and there's a great battle cry at the end of that movie where he's flying through and he's shooting up all the gangsters and stuff, and he's like, dirty motherfuckers, and he's just flying across, and it's a pretty exciting scene, and it's kind of humorous too because it's a humorous movie, right? So I like that one a lot too. My favorite battle cry scene ever is from the TV show Vikings, from the History Channel, and although that show is pretty historically inaccurate, it is an exceptionally well made as a show. It's beautifully done. All the sets look fantastic. They look real. They look like a world that exists. It has its own history. It looks lived in, even though it's not completely accurate to how things looked in real life. It looks like in its own fantastical version of history. It looks like a world that exists, right? And the acting is phenomenal from everybody in that show. And my favorite character in that show is Ivar the Boneless. And anybody who's seen this show, that he has a very famous scene in the show. It's like the most iconic scene in the show, one of the most iconic scenes. Because he's crippled from the waist down, right? And he gets knocked off a wagon by one of the enemy soldiers. And he lays there for a second, right? And then he swings his body over and he takes his axe and he just hits him in the leg and knocks the soldier down. And then he quickly climbs on the guy and he stabs him in the face and he just kills that guy super quick, right? And there's a huge element in that show of like the power of fear. And I don't think some people watch that, and I've seen some reactions to it on certain YouTube videos where they're like, how are you afraid of him? He's a cripple. It's like fear defies logic. There's so many occasions in real life when you'll be talking to someone who is not scary in terms of stature, but they're stronger than you mentally, emotionally, or they're more secure than you, they're braver than you, they're tougher than you, and so they scare you. That happens all the time, right? Energy is more important than anything, right? So that culminates. After that, he like kind of crawls over and sits by his wagon that's been knocked over, and he starts screaming at the armies that are approaching, and they stop and they're paused. They're like totally bewildered by his level of strength, his level of confidence, his level of belief in himself, even though he's a crippled guy with an axe staring at an army that could easily kill him. And he starts to scream, "Don't you know who I am? I'm Ivar the Boneless!" Like he starts screaming it like really loud, but like with full and utter belief in himself. And the reason why he has such belief in himself is because he's so smart. He sets up so many contraptions, booby traps. He knows his army is really loyal to him because he knows that they follow him because he has the strength of character, and he's more confident, he's more ruthless, he's more unstoppable. He's not going to cave to the enemy, and that's why the armies afterwards, they follow him instead of following his brothers who are able-bodied, because he has more confident, he's tougher. People are more afraid of him because they feel the energy that has stronger energy, that he's harder to stop psychologically than his brothers who can walk are. They're easier to stop psychologically. They're easier to manipulate. But you can't manipulate Ivar because he's very, very strong up here and he's very intelligent. And he's one of my favorite characters, and I think that's a really good way to handle like a character with a disability, where you use the disability to kind of like accentuate, even though the main thing is the character, right? He'd still be a good character even if he wasn't crippled, but they use that to amplify how good of a character he is by because his strength is not in his legs, it's in his mind, right? And like seeing how he is able to intimidate people purely by his intent and his energy and his confidence, to the point where they forget that he's a cripple, right? There's a lot of occasions in that show where people will just forget that he can't walk, or they'll treat him like he's a person who can walk because he acts more confident than a person who can, you know? So they kind of like forget that, and they're just like, well, what? So there's moments in the show where they call him a coward, right? Or like, it's like, come out, you coward, come out, you coward. When it's like, he's a guy who can't walk. He's not a coward. He can't fight. He can't walk on his 2 feet, right? But because they view him as like almost above a normal walking person because of his confidence and how smart he is and how much damage he can inflict with his mind and his strategic warlike planning, he is treated and saw as if he's a normal person. They call him a coward for not being out in front of everybody, even though he has to walk on like these crutches type things. And there's no way he could fight anybody unless by chance they fall on the ground and it's only 2 people, like that one occasion. But anyway, that's one of my favorite shows of all time. Ivar the Boneless is my favorite character ever in any TV show that I've ever seen. And I think in the future I might do like a revised video on just him as a character, maybe when I get more equipment and can do more complicated stuff. But that really probably is my favorite character because the actor Alex Anderson, I'm not going to say his middle initial because it's difficult for me to pronounce because I'm American, but his performance is so believable and he's so terrifying, and you just see the evil and the satanic look in his eyes of like bloodshed. And that's another thing about his character that you can pick up on, is he loves the violence more than any other character in that show. You know, he's amazing. But anyway, yeah, I just kind of wanted to ramble that off really quickly. Just wanted to get a video out. So like and subscribe if you enjoy, and have a good day.